Hi, friends. Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Happy time zone. Hi, Indy. How's it going? Fog Color History Project. Thanks for the follow and thanks for being here. How's everyone doing today? Happy Wednesday. And hopefully, wherever you are, the weather's okay. Um, I know Canada's going through all sorts of different weather things, forecasts. And on the west coast in British Columbia, it's actually nice and sunny. We are feeling spring. I know on the east coast it's a little colder and maybe not as spring-like, but I'm sending you spring vibes if that's the case for wherever you are. I ordered my first ground nib. That's awesome. Do you want to share what you got, Indy? Or are you going to wait until you get it? Good weather. Okay, just watching and sewing. Awesome. That's amazing. Well, thanks for watching and being here. Good morning, Carol. I just snagged a Paper Mouse Opus 88 Mini. So excited. Oh, that's awesome. I like the Opus 88 Mini. It's such a great pocket pen, especially if you are going to travel with it, or if you're going to take it out with you, because you can you can always cut off the amount of ink that's flowing. So I never have a problem flying with it whenever I've taken it with me on trips and to shows and stuff. So it's one of my faves. They're so cute. It's their collab. Very cute. Yeah. Paper Mouse Opus Mini. Let me see if I can find that, because I'd love to see what it looks like. Let me see. Here we go. The Paper Mouse and Opus. Oh, yes. I'll show you. Here we go. Is it this one, Carol? Flowing Friendship Pen. I like that. Oh, it's like lily pads and amazing. It's so relaxing, right? It's that like relaxing vibe. Oh, these are so cute. These little mice floating along. Oh, I wish I was them. It's so cute, right? Amazing. I like that sticker too. Very cool. I guess the listing is for the sticker, but very cute. That's awesome. I love these little, I love these collabs that are happening too. Very cute designs and very nice pens too. It's a great pen to collab with. Crookspear Cursive Smooth Italic, as fine as he can make it. Yes, you are one of those fine writers, Indy. Well, Kirk is the best, one of the best. So I'm sure he'll get it to your liking. Hello, Deepansy. How's it going? How's your week been? I may have also gotten the sticker. Carol, I would have said if you got the pen, but you didn't get the sticker, I mean, what are we doing? What's happening here? It's partly about the sticker. That one's so cute too, because they have the design on it, and like what a great way of like commemorating too, right? Like the collab pen and you having it. Nice pen. How much are they different than regular ones, for example, from Parker regular one? How are they different from like a regular pen in terms of size, writing? Parker and Opus 88 are totally different brands. So that in itself will give you different feel of holding the pen, different writing experience. Opus 88 also, I don't want, the ones that I have anyways, they write finer than a Parker in my experience. But so size wise too, with the nib, you might have differences there. And then also a regular pen such as a Parker lengthwise, it's longer. But with the Opus 88 too, it's a little bit wider than like regular pens I found, especially that mini pocket pen. It's quite cute and chunky. So you eyedropper it as well. So it's a little bit of a different mechanism and way of inking it. I debated between the italic and the spear point. Yeah. I guess then it depends on how you're going to write with it. Because those are like that, for me, that makes the difference. Is like, well, what's my writing going to look like to figure out which kind of grind to get. Collabs are fun. It's been all right, adrift on the currents of ADHD. Yeah, well, we're sending good vibes. Going to New York and Yoseka in 2 days. The countdown is on. That's awesome. Do you have your wish list or shopping list for Yoseka? And if you do, what are you kind of excited to check out? Or at least, browse. It does sound like fun. Well, what have I been up to? It's been a week. We had the Easter long weekend here in Canada. That means a 4-day weekend for most people. Not necessarily across all, fields. But schools were closed, so the kids were home for 4 days, which was really fun because we had great weather. So anytime it's a rainy, long weekend, it's always kind of like, ugh, you're stuck inside, or you kind of have to make do with the rain and stuff. But it was really sunny and warm, and barbecues, so it was really nice. But it also meant that I couldn't stream on Monday. I just kind of wanted to take that day off and be outside with the kids. So didn't do that. But I did release my latest Substack post. So if you are into long form blog content, take a look at this, and I'll share the link as well. It's my latest post about the SFSF, San Francisco Stationery Fest. So that was last weekend in SF, and just kind of wanted to do a recap and a haul. It's just, what I was able to pick up, some of the events that I was able to attend while I was there. So on the Paper Trail podcast live recording, that was really fun to watch, with Joe and Lisa co-hosting. I also taught a couple of workshops, so that was really good. Journaling meetups like Sakura Dragon, and yeah, my haul. It was a good time. I loved it. If you missed my stream last Monday, not this past Monday, but last Monday, I spent 3 hours on stream talking about my experience and the things that I got. So we went through my haul and looked at all the things that I was able to pick up. But if you do want to see it in writing and you kind of want to go through it, it also gives you an idea of, whether or not you'd be interested in going to other stationery fests or stationery shows and events. And, if you're kind of curious about how it compares to a pen show, I kind of talk about that as well. And then a little YouTube video, like 5 minutes of footage that I was able to capture. So that was kind of fun and interesting as well. So check that out if you're interested in reading a little bit more about it. That's kind of it in terms of the content that I was able to get out. Lots of sort of recaps and highlights about SFSF. I only have a Parker available here on Pelican Ink. I'll be able to try and draw with them. Yeah. No, you can try and draw with it for sure. I use different fountain pens for drawing and for writing as well. Um, so you can definitely try that out. I think the big thing is I need some ink for my pen. Oh yes, yeah, you did mention that. Want some mild liners? Yeah. Mom's giving me $25 to get her a little goodie bag of treats. That's awesome. I love that. I love I like shopping for other people when they're kind of like just either, they're like, just give me something to, that you think I would like. Or if they're just like, they don't know that you're going to shop for them. I always kind of like picking out little things here and there to gift to friends or, people who would appreciate stationery or whatever I'm picking up for them. I love my Kaweco Sports. Yeah. Considering a traveler's notebook or a new pen. Maybe a Kaweco. Yeah, okay, Kaweco Sport. Yeah, Kawecos are nice, especially if you're looking for a pocket pen. Because you have the Pilot Kakuno, right? So you have a regular size pen. Now it's time to it's time to pick up a pocket pen or a different type of pen. The nib is smaller. Definitely the feel of it would be different, of course, because it's a pocket pen, so it's designed to be like that. But it's kind of fun. I like using Kawecos for drawing as well, especially if you're kind of like out and about or, you just want to grab a fountain pen and doodle or sketch or something like that. I find they're really good for that. Was the Sakura Dragon meetup pretty fun? It was, Sir Cobalt. It was, you know what? It was really busy because they had Sakura of America, I guess. What's the company name? They they provided goodie bags for the first 50 people in line. And it just had like different Sakura products, fine liners and stuff like that. And so because people knew this, there was a lineup like 15 minutes before the event was starting, and it was already like in the 70s of how many people were there. And so Eric and I, we got into line, we're like, whoa, there's no way we're gonna get this goodie bag, which is fine. I didn't want to, I wasn't going because of a goodie bag, but it was just kind of funny because it brought out a lot of people, which is really nice. So busy, but it was in a big boardroom, so it didn't feel overwhelming or claustrophobic or anything. Enough seating for everyone who came. But it was busy. There was a de-stash table. Lots of people brought things to donate or like to give away to people. And the team also had a stamp area, so you could like try out different stamps, use them in your journal. They were from past events too, so they had like the DC Pen Show stamp and anything that was Sakura Dragon related, right, from their table. And they also had raffles, so giveaways, and Eric won the first one. I was a little jealous, not just kidding. But yeah, it was really good. They found a way to keep it sort of going and get people engaged. Lots of talk about journaling and the different supplies that people were using, sharing of that. So yeah, it was really, really fun. I'm glad we went and checked it out. And then after that was the after dark event. So it was like karaoke and just hangouts and stuff. So scathingly brilliant idea. Awesome. Hi, first time to join live. Will you be at any pen shows this year? Planning on being at the San Francisco Pen Show in August. So hopefully teaching a couple of workshops there again, but we will see. Do you go to pen shows? Yes, and welcome in. No problem. If you have any questions, Fog Color, let us know. There are lots of smart people in this chat too. Lots of pen people. So if you have any questions about pens and inks and stuff, I'm sure that chat will chime in as well. Official name Nancy. Hi, Nancy. I love it. Also have another Kaweco Sport coming this week. Up to 9 now. Awesome, Indy. Do you have a collection? Like, would you say you're a collector of Kawecos or? You just happen to find them, like the colorways and stuff, up your alley. I wanted to go, but all the late night things were hard to get to, of course, understandably. Yeah, commuting takes such a long time. I know. The lines are huge, even for their Plotter and Traveler event. Yeah. Yeah, because you were there for the Plotter event. I didn't get to... When I went to the Travelers event, I was like, yeah, okay. People are serious. They want to shop. They want to test different things out. I love it. It was a great vibe. I'm skeptical of the pocket size, but I've heard so much good that I'm considering it. Yeah, or maybe the Perkeo. Yeah. Perkeo? We'll see where my heart takes me. Yeah, if you're able to, I guess... someone who's been to Yoseka, because I haven't, do they have tester pens out? Or can you ask them to test a pen? Because if you are able to try them and get like a feel for how they write and how, it feels to actually hold one... Because I feel like that might make the difference in terms of like, if you're just like, no, I'm not ready for the feel of a pocket pen, which is totally fine. But Kavekos in general are great pens. I don't like the I don't have the Perkeo either, but they also have the Kaweco AL Sport aluminum. So it's a heavier pen, right? It's metal. I have one of those. It feels nice, but again, it's also more expensive than the plastic body, but it might be something that sort of tips you over the size of it being so small, but maybe you just want it to be a little heavier. So that's a consideration too. SFPS was too much for me last year. Yeah. You know what? I'm looking forward to the changes. I'm assuming there will be changes this year because of the Stationery Fest. So, they were saying that for the SF Pen Show last year, there were a lot of vendors who wanted to be part of the show, but they were either like heavily leaning towards stationery, so accessories, stickers, washi tape and stuff. And so it didn't really make sense to have a lot of those vendors at the pen show. And of course, it also limits the amount of pen vendors who are focused on fountain pens and inks and papers to be part of the pen show. And I think they wanted to allow more vendors to be part of these types of events. And having the Stationery Fest, I mean, they had a lot of vendors at the Stationery Fest, right? It was a full-on show. So knowing that they were able to, fill a whole event to make it worth going and being able to find what you want to look for just tells me that like there's no way they can combine the pen show and the stationery event, have it in the same space, and be able to pull it off. So I think separating them out to be more, one is more pen focused and the other is just general stationery focused. I think that makes sense. So I'm curious to see how the pen show compares this year versus last year, because last year, yes, it was very overwhelming. A lot of times where I even, having been to pen shows prior to that, having to step away and like just get some fresh air and just be away from the crowds. It wasn't great in terms of accessibility and, just being able to get through the show floor. So hopefully, changes that they make this year will kind of reflect two different events being unique and allowing for vendors and even people who are, there are different types of people, some who are into general stationery and not necessarily into fountain pens. So kind of makes sense to have two separate events, I think. Never use a pen to draw. Mostly I use them to write, to recreate old architectural plans. Awesome. It'll be fun to try with my daughter to try something. Yeah, or to draw something. Yeah, for sure. I highly encourage drawing and sketching with your fountain pens because it's like I think it just makes sense to push them a little bit more creatively and kind of get enjoy it. especially if you ink them up in inks that you like seeing. It's kind of fun to draw with them as well. I have a lot of different colors. Amazing. No, you do you, Indy. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm not going to SFPS this year. Just Chicago and DC. Yeah, awesome. DC is a busy one. Not that I've been, but... The sports needs to be posted. Yeah, to be comfy, for sure. I think, like, pocket pens, depending on which ones, but definitely Kaweco, and even the smaller, like Franklin Christoph's maker pens that are pocket pens. I definitely post those. And I'm not a poster in general. I don't like to post my fountain pens. But if it's a pocket pen, or it sort of elongates the profile of the pen so it feels more comfortable to hold it, I will definitely post it. Yeah, Indy, if you draw with a permanent ink, you can color it later with watercolors. You definitely can. Yeah, DC is bigger, but also less congested. It depends on the space too, right? Like, if there's space available, yes, it might be busier, but it doesn't mean that it has to be overwhelming or like just too packed. I love Chicago. St. Louis, right? St. Louis. It's a lot of fun because it's small. Brad will be there this year too. I saw the post. St. Louis Pen Show posted about like an interview session or something like that with the pen addict. So that's awesome. That should be fun. I got Sepia black ink in mostly waterproof after it dries. That's nice. I like that. I started matching pen colors to ink colors. Easier to know what's in the pen. Yeah. You know what? Same. Because otherwise I have to keep referring to my currently inked log, which is fine, because even when I know what color ink it is, sometimes I'm like, what's it called again? You know, but at least knowing like what color you're going to be using is important, I think. I like that color is different than plain black. Yeah. I know. I also like, if I have a black pen, I like putting in like surprising colors, like bright, fun colors, because I don't necessarily have a pen in each color. So sometimes pinks, reds, even though I think I have one red pen from Franklin Christoph and one red pink from Esterbrook. But, you know, I don't always like to ink them up all the time. So sometimes I like throwing it in black and just being like, surprise, it's a bright magenta. All right, friends, while we chat, feel free to, you know, continue. Let me know, you know, anything that you've recently acquired that you're really excited about, that you want to share, or if you have any questions. In the meantime, I wanted to catch up on some drawing practice because it's been a month. It's been a long time. It's been a few weeks since my last drawing practice session, or stream at least. And I kind of want to keep this up. It's a great practice. You know, I started in January. I've been trying to at least once a week do this, and usually on my Monday streams, so I can make sure that I do it. But, you know, recently just haven't been able to with all the things that are going on and traveling and stuff. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time doing it today, and I thought, you know, why not do it on stream, and we could talk about, you know, stationery supplies and stuff like that. So if you've joined for the first time, oh, by the way, I'm Corolla. On socials, I'm from Corolla, and I love all things stationery. I do a lot of painting and drawing, mostly abstract flower art, So that's what you'll kind of see from me on socials. And I love using watercolor paints, fountain pen inks, and all kinds of different stationery supplies, just to play with them, be creative with them, find some joy in creating. And so I usually stream on Mondays and Wednesdays. This week is a little off because of the holidays, so I'm streaming today and tomorrow, same time, same place. And yeah, so I have magenta ink in my black pen right now. Yes, magenta and black are perfect. Sometimes I feel like putting a bright color ink in the same color pen is a little bit much. So in that way, I kind of like to balance it out, go with the opposite. But yeah, I like the colors different than plain black. Yeah. So so that's what I wanted to do today. For the purpose of this practice where I'm drawing flowers, I'm using the Hemlock and Oak weekly and daily undated planner. It's a planner that they gifted me to test out the paper. So I've been, trying different supplies out on it and using them in different ways. And so in the weekly sections, I've been kind of doing back planning or memory keeping, also on stream. But, if I don't have time to do it on stream, I do it offline. And it's very, very simple, very basic. Nothing too complicated. And then in the daily pages, which they're undated, so it doesn't really matter if I miss a few days here and there. But I don't use this planner for planning. So I decided to try and start a drawing practice where I use reference photos from this book called Flower Color Guide by Taylor and Michael Putnam. And it's basically like a coffee table book of just photos of flowers and different types of flowers you might find. And it's by color and shade. So what I basically do is sometimes I have sort of an idea of what kind of color scheme or palette I want to play around with. And so I'll kind of pick out a flower based on that. Or sometimes I just randomly kind of open up to a page and I decide, I'm going to try and practice drawing this. So the reason why I do this or try and draw from a reference photo is because the more you practice, the more you build up your muscle memory. And if you ever, like me, want to draw just freehand, without reference, just for fun, it's a lot easier to pull from your memory of, flowers that you have seen and kind of base it off of that than, make up a whole new thing. So I find that it's a lot easier for me to draw abstract florals if I have something to base it on in my mind. Even if it doesn't look exactly like those flowers, it's totally fine. Even in my reference, when I do drawing, I don't spend too much time worrying about whether or not it looks exactly like the photo that I'm using. It's more so just to practice those lines and the different shapes that I'm seeing. So I don't like to spend too much time, focusing on whether or not something looks perfect. I would rather just go with the flow and enjoy it, kind of lean into the practice of doing the thing versus just overthinking, which I do in real life, right? Like we do enough overthinking and worrying and stressing about everything that's going on in our lives, especially if you're a parent or, you have a job, you have this, you have that, you have responsibilities. And I find that being creative or doing some sort of art practice is a great way of disconnecting from that and just, being present in the moment of having fun and finding joy. So the tools that I use for my drawing practice, I'll show you how I do it. So if you ever want to try this on your own, it's not that hard. So it might be kind of fun. I use Tombow dual brush pens. and I use this colorless blender. And you may find this in marker sets that you buy, in the Tombow marker sets, the 10-pack. Usually they throw one of these in. And at first, when I first started using these Tombow dual brush pens, I always kind of wondered, like, what am I supposed to do with this? Because it has no color. But it's a brush marker. So you have, you know, a brush tip, and then you have a fine sort of bullet tip. And there is no color, but the purpose of these colorless blenders are to blend your colors. And you can also use it for transferring colors. So if you have, for example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer some of the colors from my markers onto the colorless blender, and then use that to do some coloring on paper. And I love the effect of it. It reminds me of, you know, watercolor painting, the soft, sort of gentle way of drawing and coloring. And I love the way that the colors blend. So that's one way I do it. And I also use the blending palette from Tombow. It's basically like a laminated sheet. On one side is a directory or reference, a chart of all of their markers ever. So I find it kind of useful as well when I try to figure out what colors I may need. I use this as a reference guide. And then the other side is what I use to transfer the colors. So I already picked this out. This was like 2 weeks ago. I wanted to do this, and of course didn't get to it. So we're gonna get to it today. But this is the anemone. Anemone? Am I pronouncing it correct? And it's so pretty. And I thought it's, you know, spring vibes, summer vibes, bright colors, and already picked out some markers that I think kind of represent the color palette very well. So I'm gonna go with that. I gotta go work with my hands for a bit. Have a great stream. Thanks, Deepensy. Have a good one. That's a great book to reference, right? Yeah, I love it. Yeah, they also have another book that I also have. It's called The Flower Color Theory. It's on my bookcase. But similar idea, right? It's just photos of, the other one actually has bouquets or floral arrangements. So that's kind of cool too. But this is like just, you know, one type of flower, and I find that it's really interesting. So you can of course find them online, right? Like Pinterest is great, or just Google different types of flowers if you want to sort of try and practice this. But also, if you like visually having something to refer to, then that's kind of helpful. So these are bright colors. Mostly that one. So I just transferred some of the colors or all of the colors to the blending palette. And then now what you can do is use a colorless blender and pick up these colors and then transfer them to paper. So that's what I'm going to do after I have a sip of my tea. Okay, so how I start is with the light color first. So let's do that. So I pick up some of the light color, and I'm just gonna put it on paper. And I'm basically looking at the general shape of each flower, and how the petals are shaped, but also what direction they're kind of facing. So this is my first layer, so it's going to be light, and then I add dark on top of it. So that way I can kind of correct the shapes if I want to. especially because you can't really see it too well now. So, and this way I can also plan where each flower is kind of going to sit. So just eyeballing it and then adding in the shapes. So I can kind of see how much space they're going to take up. And I may not do all of the flowers, but we'll see. Let's see how many I can fit in. And there's another one in the back. So we're gonna layer that in. And then maybe maybe I can fit all four or all of them. And the reason why I'm adding color first instead of drawing the flowers first, which yes, I know this is, I said I was gonna draw flowers and I will. But the reason why I put color down first is because it gives me an idea of composition. So where the flowers are gonna be, like I said, what kind of shapes they make, what the petals look like. And that way as well, I'm kind of focusing more on the color aspect of it than drawing the perfect flowers. So for me, this is way more relaxing than focusing on drawing the flowers first, because I don't know, this way I can kind of keep it a little bit more abstract than technical. And I know a lot of people sort of, you would start by drawing the flowers and then adding color to them. But it makes it a little bit more of a technical practice than an abstract practice. And I find I focus too much on what the flower looks like than what I'm doing now, which is focusing on colors, exploring where to put those colors, kind of building the layers, building the shapes up. And so it may not look like each flower until probably the last step, but I just find it a lot more fun to do it this way. Especially because I've been doing it long enough to know that I can trust the process and not stress about what it's going to look like in the end. It will look fine. And even if it doesn't look exactly like what I'm looking at right now, at least it's kind of, it's practicing of the shapes and stuff that's important to me. So, okay, so I added a little bit of the dark sort of centers of the flowers in here. And I think what I'm going to do now is focus on the color. So I love this really bright magenta color. And I think that's what I'm going to build or use to build the flowers. So each petal is kind of this specific shape. And I'm going to try and practice that a little bit. It's easier with a brush tip like this because it mimics a paintbrush, and with paintbrushes it's a little more forgiving when you do your lines, and it looks a lot smoother too. So I like that, having used paintbrushes, being able to use a brush pen to do a similar type of look, to get a similar type of look, Makes it a little bit more natural to me. So you can see I'm kind of coloring over the light part, the light color. I think that's fine because it sort of adds to the layering look. I love that look. And this flower is actually a little darker. This one too is a little darker. So what I'm going to do with these flowers that look a little bit darker than some of the ones on the top there is I'm going to add color directly with the markers. So I'll do that after this, after I get that first layer done. There's a few petals that stick out here, so I kind of capture those. So kind of have them here. And then I'm going to take the marker itself. I'm going to add a little bit of color here. You can tell as soon as you start actually drawing with the marker, now you see these very sharp lines. They're very noticeable. They kind of stand out. They're harder to blend. I don't have this flower in here. Oh, it's right there. It's like, wait a minute. They don't add up. The math is not mathing. I don't have the right amount of flowers. It's not a big deal. But once you sort of do this, then it's a little bit harder to blend sometimes. But what you can do is add a little bit of the color on top again. Blend it that way. But this paper is not like watercolor paper. And it's not super soft or smooth like coated paper. So knowing that, I'm not going to play around too much by constantly adding color to it. But I think I will make this darker too. All right, let's see what's going on here. All right, and then, looks pretty good. Then I'm gonna add the stems and leaves. Move some of this color off. Okay. These leaves are interesting. Kind of curly. And then the stem. There's a few stems here. One. This one here. Another one here. That one, that one, that one, that one, and that one. Okay. And then some greenery leaves. How do you clean the blender tip? Yeah, great question. So basically you want to get the color off of your tip. So all you have to do is just find a spot where there is no color and just kind of transfer any color that you still have on here. So as you keep drawing with it or coloring with it on this blending palette, you'll see that it's clear now. So there's no color coming off, which means it's self-cleaning or it's ready to take on a new color. The other thing is you can put just like dip it in a little bit of water or put it under a light, running tap or whatever, and get some of that color off that way as well. It will stay wet, like it's a moist tip as the brush pens are, because you don't want it to dry out. So you can always wash it off that way. But I wouldn't be too concerned if you see a little bit of that color still on there, especially with brighter colors like pinks, reds, oranges. You'll tend to get a little bit of the dyeing, right? It dyes the fiber a little bit. But as you continue to use it, the color will keep working off the tip or sort of cleaning itself. So the purpose of sort of getting that color off is just because if you, for example, we're using these bright color, like this bright color, magenta, and if I pick up the green, then obviously it's going to blend those two colors, which, in itself is a great technique as well. And I sometimes do that. If I can't find the right shade that I want to work with, then you can try and use two different shades and blend them together that way. And that's kind of a fun practice too. But if you want to stick with your separate colors, then, and you only have one colorless blender that you're working with, then just make sure you're coloring off whatever color is already on the tip. You can of course use more than one colorless blender and like dedicate one to like the cooler colors and the other one to warmer colors or something like that. Try and differentiate that way. But eventually the tip will clean itself. So that's kind of it. I think I'm okay with that. That's kind of weird looking. Maybe I'll smooth this out a little bit. I don't know. You can also put a leaf there and distract. Okay. So I think that's good. I'm good with that. So what I do is I just kind of let it sit for a little bit because it's still a little damp, or, you know, I've been putting a lot of markers on here, so the paper needs a little time to settle. And then I'm going to draw on top. So let me get my pen, my fine liner. So what I do after I sort of have this outline of the shapes and the flowers, then I go on top, or then I use a fine liner to add details on top. So this is where I sort of use what I have on paper as a guide to sort of give me an indication of where the lines should go. And so I'm not starting with a blank slate. I find this is a lot less pressure for me. So that's fine. I like to use the very an 005, which is their finest tip, Tombow mono drawing pen. So Tombow makes these fine liners in a range of sizes, and 005 is one of their newer additions to their fine liner range. And 005 is pretty much like needlepoint, or like extra, like ultra extra fine. So you do have to be gentle with it because otherwise, you know, you could damage the tip. But I like it because for drawing on top of something like this, I don't want to take away from the color, right? I don't want to draw on top of it that you can't see what's underneath and all you see is a black line. So I'm not going to use, you know, a large tip for something like this. And basically what I do is I just go over what's already here, and I'm just simply adding lines. So kind of like using this tip for that, because writing with something like this will be kind of fun, but also it's like, if you're not, you know, the type of person who uses really, really fine, you know, gel pens or nibs, then I find drawing with it or doing like line work makes it a lot more useful, I think. I'm trying to capture these curly leaves because when I draw leaves, they don't tend to be this unruly. They don't tend to be like curly or anything. So it's kind of fun. I want to add that to the way I draw leaves sometimes, is like, maybe I want to add some of these curly sort of fine leaves. I think that's kind of fun. Looks amazing. Thank you. Those look 3D. Yeah, kind of, right? Like, it's the trick of layering different colors, especially when you have light and dark, and playing around with that a little bit. And then I find drawing a few lines on top too will give a little bit more life to it, make it look a little bit more dynamic than it might just with a color. How long do they last? I am going to be honest with you, I don't know. They're meant to last for as long as you take care of them. So, you know, if you're using, it goes with any kind of brush marker, right? Or calligraphy pen. As long as you're using the recommended paper with these brush markers, the tips will last for a while, for a long time. But that being said, you know, if you're using it on watercolor paper or copy paper or anything that's textured, then, and you're being, you know, you have a tight grip and you push down with a lot of pressure, then they will not last for as long as they could potentially. So In my experience, I haven't had to replace my brush markers at all for the fraying or anything like that, because I'm very careful about how I use them and what I use them on. But, I obviously have had to replace them because I've run out of ink. So that's kind of my biggest issue, is how often I use them. But if you do, you take care of them, you use them on smooth paper, then they should last for, a long time. That's more so if they dry out. You may have to run them, in some water, or you may have to dip them in water to get them going again. But I don't think I've had too many issues with that. Hi, how's it going? Banran. Let me know how you pronounce that. But hello and welcome. Doing a little flower drawing practice. So trying to get all these petals in here, just to kind of mimic like how full it looks and how many petals are kind of on this flower. Having Chinese while chilling here. Awesome. Well, I'm having tea while drawing, so. Do you always use black for this part? I do, just because it neutralizes it for me. But I've also used brown, so like a dark brown might be kind of nice. Thank you. But because I like fine liners, especially like the disposable kind, right? I have a lot of them in black, so. And I also do this similar practice of drawing flowers, but not from reference photos. I just do them, I paint them using fountain pen ink or watercolor paint. And to draw the details on top, what I actually use is a dip pen. So there's two different kinds. There's stainless steel. This one's stainless steel, this one's aluminum. Kakamori stainless steel and Colorless shuttle dip pen, and they're basically dip nibs that I just put into a holder, and I use those with a permanent pigment ink. So it's just this one's a Kakamori pigment ink, but you can use any kind of like dark pigment type of ink, black or any other color. There's a lot of them out there that are great for drawing on top of paint, or other inks, and letting it sort of stand out a little bit. And so that's similar to what I did here, is I used watercolor paints just to paint abstract flowers. And then on top I used one of the dip pens and the pigment ink, and that's just to add, similar to this, a little bit of detail but more of an abstract style. So and I find that with black ink on top as well, it sort of breaks up the color. And so instead of just seeing like a bunch of color on there, now all of a sudden I can see, a little bit more of the details like petals and, where the center you have, the whatever they're called in the center of a flower. And then also, the stems gives it a little bit more definition. So that's kind of what I do, or the reason why I do it. But again, the reason why I use a fine point for something like this is because the whole practice is trying to understand the shapes a little bit more and practice them a little bit more. So you can see the difference between just having the color, which is great. You can leave it at that. You have color, you have a little bit of layering, and it's, it indicates a flower anyways. But then when I go with fine liner on top, all of a sudden it just gives me a little bit more detail. So a little bit more information about what those petal shapes are and stuff. So in doing that, I find that's where muscle memory helps, or at least it sort of builds that muscle memory of these types of flowers and the shapes of their petals. And that's why it's kind of nice to do different types of flowers, right? Like this one, a rose. Petals obviously look different than these ones. So it's kind of nice to vary which flowers I'm drawing based on reference, at least, because then I can kind of pull from, the different shapes when I'm doing more abstract work. And it's a lot of like exploration. It's a lot of just trying it out and seeing what works, what I like too, like what looks good to me may not look the same to someone else. And if you're trying this for yourself and you're kind of like, yeah, I don't want to go over with a fine liner or even a fountain pen you can use to add details, or use a different color, it's all good. It's all part of the fun, I think. And it also, that's what makes it unique to each person, is the types of tools that you use and your own style. I like the sort of erratic, chaotic sketch style. It's not perfect. It's also not very, doesn't have to be technical, and I like that. So this paper, so this is a 70 GSM paper. It's called Archivist, but it's unique to Hemlock and Oak. So you can only find this type of paper in Hemlock and Oak planners for this year and for next year. They're going to be using it for their planners. So I would always, test out the types of paper that you're using. If they're fountain pen friendly, then they should be fine with brush markers or this type of, coloring and drawing. But I also tested fountain pen inks on this paper and found that it was really nice. But of course, you get a little bit of the warping of the paper, which is kind of expected, right? When you're painting with inks or paints, you'll get a little bit of warping because it's not watercolor paper. So we'll buckle a little bit. But I also use the Kakimori pigment ink that I just showed you to draw those details. And it was fine. It didn't bleed through. It sat on top of the ink like it should. And it looks great. Like I found that really fun. But again, it's just knowing whether your paper can handle putting a lot of color on it, right? So in this kind of practice, you're layering color on color on color, and then on top of that, you're doing a little bit of drawing. So always, test the paper first, make sure that it's able to handle the different stationery supplies or the different brushes and markers and stuff that you're going to use. So when I did the testing, I like that it handles fountain pen inks, because that's kind of my go-to in using up fountain pen inks. Is aside from inking up my pens, I also like to paint with them. But I just found maybe for this kind of practice or this paper, I didn't want to also throw fountain pen inks in here. So that's why I kind of went with using brush markers, using a fine liner. It's not too much for this paper. So, and I'm also going to write the type of flower. Double magenta. All right. And I'm gonna date it. So let's use, let's see. Here we go. So I'm gonna use the Tombow Fudenosuke brush pen. And it's similar to a dual brush pen or marker, but the size of the brush tip is a lot finer. So for hand lettering practice, I prefer this type of brush marker just because you can easily control it. And if you're working with a small space or a limited space, then it's easier to fit it in versus something like this where you have like a very broad brush tip. It's great for hand lettering as well, but more so when you have a lot of space to work with. So I missed some of the comments, so I'm just gonna take a look through. I made the mistake of trying to paint using red ink on a birthday card. It dried up bronze. Yeah, all the sheen, right? I've seen recordings of your abstract flower and have done a bit of that, but never joined live to ask all my questions. Yay! Well, I'm glad you're here because yeah, you can. It's easier, I find, to ask questions live or in chat or something like that because of that, right? Like, especially if it's like just little comments here or there or like recommendations and stuff like that. It's a lot easier for me to talk through it than to write it out. So yeah, I'm glad you're here to ask. It's a fun way to use my fountain pen ink. Yes, exactly. Been using Midori M5 square cotton notebook for that. Awesome. Yeah, how do you find the cotton paper for inks? Because I've been using my Midori cotton notebook for or with colored pencils, more so than inks, just because I find that it's a lot toothier. But I've been really enjoying the feel of it with pencils and colored pencils too. So graphite on cotton paper is really, really nice. But I'm curious to hear what you think. Oh, you love it. Awesome. Do you get any kind of like bleeding or feathering? I saw somebody use watercolor to paint tiny chickens. That's the best thing ever. Yeah. Hilarious. The shading entirely came from where the water pooled up as it dried. Yeah. That's kind of nice though, isn't it? I think it would be cool to do a series of painting using only inks that have the names of flowers. Yeah, like painting a morning glory with as a cow. No, you do it first. Doesn't bleed through. Okay, awesome. I'll give that a go. For sure. I also like Midori cream paper a lot. And painting on that is nice. But just considering that the colors may look a little bit different because you're using cream paper and not white paper. But I like it because it seems warm, like it's sort of a warm background versus like stark white and you're kind of building on top of that. So that's kind of interesting as well. But I'm going to stream until 11 because I think Brad is going to be on at 11. So I think we have time to probably do one more now that we've done this. So I'll give you a final look at these two. So again, not exactly the same, but close enough that, you know, I feel comfortable with the shapes, and I kind of like that. So you made it in time, Magical Quill. You made it in time for me to pick another one, and I think I might go with a different colorway this time too. I don't know, something springy. Pink. And some of these I think I've already done. Carnations might be fun. Ooh, this is pretty. Peony. It's like a chocolate soldier peony colorway. Interesting. French parrot tulip. See, something red maybe, or peach even. Yellow. Sunflower. That's nice. I may have already done that. Let's see, maybe yellow. Oh, daffodil. Should we do a daffodil? Maybe we should do those. Maybe let's do daffodils. Have I done these before? No. That's so funny because I'm seeing daffodils everywhere around here. It's one of those token spring flower where you have daffodil bulbs, and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, spring is here, right? They're so pretty. And so yellow and bright and cheery. Love it, yeah. Gotta get back to work. It's all good. I'm glad you were able to join, though. Have a good one, Nancy. I'll maybe see you in a future stream. All right, so let's do this. Daffodil. And I'm going to put these markers away because I'm not going to need those. But I will need some of these. So we have these colors to choose from. All of the fun, bright colors. But in general, I think I just need a bright yellow. I'm going to do bright yellow. A little bit of a lighter tone, maybe. Let's see. And then 2 greens. A little bit dark and light. Let's try these. They might be very similar. Okay. I don't want this one. Ooh, I like that. And then 2 greens. Yeah, maybe these 2. Okay, and then there's a slightly brown part of the stem. So maybe I'll take that as well. So, okay. All right, we have colors. They're all very close. But that is okay. Oh, the other thing I need to do is add the palette. So let's do that actually before I forget. So just so I know what colors I used, I like to add the color palette. So we have 6, 7, 3, 6, 8, 5, 6, 7, 9, and 126. So, all right. So for the daffodil, I'm going to do light yellow, bright yellow. That's going to be fun. Then a light green and a slightly darker shade. And a little bit of this brown. I'm going to use a different marker. Yeah, it's okay. Okay, so let's see if I can put that there. Move this here. There we go. Okay, so daffodil. I don't really draw a lot of this type of flower. But that's why it's good to practice, because it sort of opens you up to different shapes. Different shapes, different types of flowers. So first layer, a really light yellow. Then second layer, a little bit brighter, so that we get a little bit more dimension. And general shapes again. And then here too. And this one's a big one, big flower. And this one. All right, so that's what we have to begin with. I'm going to add a little bit of this brown here. Maybe a little down here. Then I'm going to add a little bright yellow to this. And this has a little bit in the center there as well. Okay. This has a little light green, so use the okay. So we have that, and then I'm going to add stems. And there's some big leaves. So we're going to practice doing that too. Okay. You have this big leaf here. And another one over here. And then here's where I think I'm going to add a little bit of marker color directly to shoe paper. This is the stem. Perfect time for daffodils. Even with the snow yesterday, the daffodils are sending up buds. I know. Hopefully flowers soon. There's always hope when I see daffodils. Like this is spring. It's a sign. So pretty. Okay, so I think I'm good with this. My light yellow. Okay. Let's see if we can darken the leaves a little bit. All right. Cool. So now I'm going to let that dry a little bit. Hi, Jacqueline, lurking during work, but it's always so relaxing to watch you paint and draw. That's awesome. No, you're so welcome. Thanks for lurking anyways. Thanks for being here. Sometimes I get caught up in the drawing or the painting. I'm like, wait, you're all here too. And that's what makes it a lot of fun too, is I'm not just doing this on my own. Feels like we're hanging out, but we're all doing something. So I'm going to add a little bit of detail here. Just following those curves of the petals. And then the stem. Petal out. And this one, which has center kind of things, and then it comes out. And we have this big flower here. And that's kind of it. So let's see. Yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it like this. Finally made it for lunch lurk over here. Awesome. Hey Lisa, how's it going? Fuzzy turnip. Those are so nice. Crazy what you could do with markers, the blender, and a bit of time, right? Fuzzy turnip. It's the time part that's a little tricky sometimes. Just to make time for it. But honestly, if you have simple supplies, you know, brush markers, and a blender pen, but also you could use a paintbrush with a little bit of water if you wanted to. This is just mess free, so it's not a lot of cleanup for me. But yeah, it's kind of amazing, isn't it? And then just something to transfer the color onto. If you want to do it like this, so you know, again, the reason why I like doing it this way by using brush markers but transferring them onto something like a blending palette and then back onto paper, is because you get these soft colors and these soft lines, and it makes it a lot forgivable if you think that, you know, you made a little mistake with, like, oh, the flower doesn't actually look like this shape or something like that. I find when you transfer color onto paper, it's a lot easier to fix that kind of stuff, so it doesn't stand out to you as a mistake or something you're not, you know, in love with, versus, you know, using those markers to just color on paper. It's very stark and like aggressive. So yeah, that's why I like doing that. But I'm glad we had time to do two different floral designs, or floral flowers at least. The anemone and daffodils. So I'm gonna do the palette here too, so I don't forget. All right, so we have, let's see here, 062. And then we have 055 and 133. and 126 and 027. All right. So spring, daffodil, and just yellow. Nice. And if you are using something like a blending palette or a laminated sheet or something like that, the easy cleanup of this is that you just rinse them off, dry them, and they're good to be used again. Similar to using like a paint palette or something. Just rinse it off, reuse. Very, very easy. That was fun. I don't think I don't draw daffodils too much. But they are fun and they have this unique shape that's very, it's very interesting, but also different, you know, to practice drawing, because it's not a typical flower shape, maybe. Whereas, you know, some of the other ones, including the one I did this morning or earlier, is that's sort of the more general petal shape that we're used to seeing. And also, if you think of flowers, that's probably one of those shapes that come up to you naturally. Maybe, you know, not necessarily the daffodil shape, because it is unique, and when you see it, you obviously think daffodil, right? So that's partly why it's not one of those shapes that I practice a lot, and it's not one of the shapes that comes up too often in terms of having that sort of, what is it, a tunnel type shape to it. Maybe similar to like a lily, where it's sort of, you know, it moves upwards and then curls in, but yeah, not necessarily like a daffodil. So very, very interesting. And it's always kind of fun to flip through, you know, different types of flowers and pictures and stuff, to see what you're drawn to in terms of shapes and colors, and yeah, palettes, depending on seasons too sometimes. Definitely time for daffodils. This one is the Flower Color Guide by Taylor and Michael Putnam. It's one of those like coffee table books where it's literally just pictures of different flowers, and it's organized by shade, so you know you can kind of flip through them, and then in the back there's kind of a reference, these reference cards. So it is nice if you're thinking about using it for art, but also like if you're into flower arranging or just, you know, something to do with florals. I think it's kind of nice. I also like it because, yeah, I want it for my classroom. I like it because it's a physical book of pictures, because, you know, it's not like you're going on Pinterest or something and just finding flowers to use in the moment. This is kind of nice to have and flip through, and I like that for each page, all it is just a picture of the flower and then information in terms of naming. And then I guess season, color, because there are different variations of the same flower, but in different color schemes. So you have a few roses, peonies, some of those more common types of flowers, but in different shades or colorways. So it's kind of nice that they break it down for you, and it's a good reference too. So kind of like that. There's also another book. Maybe I'll show it to you. This is actually one of the first books that I got. This is called Flower Color Theory. Same authors. Actually, this one is Michael Putnam and Derek Putnam. So, but this book is interesting because it's flower arrangements. So if you are into, floral arrangements and the different colors that, go together palette wise and stuff, they have the color palette on the side. Again, kind of like a coffee table book or like a reference book. And in the back, again, kind of color palettes and things like that. So this is really interesting too. But yeah, right? Like really, really pretty. Some of the colors that go together. So I got this first, just, because I love flowers and, it's kind of nice to have, like I said, a physical book that you can flip through, get inspiration, or try and draw if you're practicing. But it's also, more time consuming if you're using it in terms of drawing practice. It's a lot more complicated and a lot more effort. So something like this is a little bit easier for this practice anyways. But both books are really nice. Inspiring and just really, really cool. The different types of flowers that I haven't seen all of these, of course, in real life. So it's kind of nice to see photos of all the different types of flowers that they have decided to put into this book, or these two books anyways. I bought one of those blender brushes for my daughter. I think she will love it. Yeah, oh good, Fuzzy Turnip. Yeah, I think so too. And it's a great sort of introduction to using brush pens or markers in different ways, right? It's just like leveling up a little bit with your supplies. Oh, Olive Octopus, you haven't used the blender much. Yeah, I hadn't used it for a while. I said at the outset too, these colorless blenders from Tombow, they come in the 10 pack. Like when you get the 10 pack of markers, because you like the palette or for whatever reason, they throw this in there. And a lot of times I find people just don't use it. Mostly because they're kind of like, what am I going to use it for? I got these markers for coloring or for hand lettering. So it wasn't until, maybe a couple years ago that I actually looked into different ways of using this. There are different techniques and blending tips and stuff like that for specifically for colorless blenders. And especially if you're into using paintbrushes or painting and you love that effect that you can get from like watercolors and stuff or inks. The colorless blender is a great way of doing that without having to use water, without kind of having to mix colors and stuff like that, or colors and paints and inks. All you have to do is, like I said, transfer these colors and pick it up with a colorless blender and do some coloring. Have some fun. It's very minimal prep and cleanup. So that's kind of nice. And yeah, very cool. I love that it looks very seamless too, just in terms of the different colors or the different shades working together. So you have some bright and some very gentle, lighter shades, which is nice. I also like this because it was very, very fun. Very cool. Well, we have like 10 minutes before Brad comes on, I think. So if you have any questions or you just want to chat about stuff, we have time. Let me just pop open Twitch so I there you go. Don't want that either. Right. Cool. Out of curiosity, does the flower book have violas in it? Let's see. I don't think so. Not by itself, anyway. Unless it's has a longer name. Let me see if it has it in here. I'm sure it would. No, not that I can see. No. No. Wow, I just realized in this book, Flower Color Theory, Index of Colors and Color Schemes. So it really is kind of nice if you're working with a palette or arranging flowers. So they do have a lot of flowers. I wonder if it's like if there's something else that they categorize it as or label it as. Because there's a lot of flowers in here. Yeah. Let me see. Let me see if you can search by a different name. I just googled violas and it says cool season annuals or short-lived perennials, often called Johnny Jump Ups. That was very cute. Oh, I see. Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, no worries. I don't know if they have. Yeah, I don't think I have seen that in here actually. Not that I've Googled what it looks like, but it's all good. Yeah, it's kind of cool that you can, like, in the index pages, they have like these small little cards that are perforated, so you can, you know, you can take them out if you wanted to for whatever reason, I guess. But it's also by color, so you know, if you're working with a certain color scheme or you're kind of interested in flowers in a certain color range, it's kind of cool that they've arranged it this way. So since I'm late and phone screen is tiny, remind me what notebook the flower paintings are in. Oh, this is my Hemlock and Oak planner. And I use it because the paper is 70 GSM archivist paper, and it's a special formulated paper for Hemlock and Oak. But I really enjoy the paper. It's an uncoated fountain pen friendly paper, but it still feels smooth. But yeah, it handles colors really well. So decided to use it for drawing in it and coloring in it because yeah, it's great for markers and brush pens and stuff. But I even tested painting with inks in it and it was fine. So no bleed through, like minimal ghosting. The paper actually withheld the water really well too. A little bit of warping and buckling, I guess, but nothing too harsh. So Yeah, it's a nice paper. Familiar profile pic. Yeah. Let's see. What else? What else can I tell you in like a few minutes that we're still here? Yeah, Flower Color Guide and Flower Color Theory. I think those are the only two books by Michael Putnam. I don't know if they have any other books in case you are interested in like a reference book of flowers. But I find that these are really they're very broad, like they sort of cover a lot of different types of flowers. So yeah, it does look great, right? It's one of those maybe I'll move this. It's one of those planners that was gifted to me, so with the purpose of testing out the paper. So I tested it and I was like, I actually kind of like this paper. I really like it. So I like that I can use it for drawing and coloring in. And getting, all different colors. I actually am quite impressed by how you can layer colors on this paper, because usually it's like marker paper or something specific to using markers and brush pens on that will handle it really well. But this does it pretty well. So it's a nice way of kind of using up these pages that I'm not going to use for planning specific purposes. So yeah, it's kind of nice. And what I was doing when I was doing this on stream, I also did a little bit of journaling using my Leonardo Momento Zero and just using a prompt, if you're into that kind of journaling. So you can do a little drawing, doodling, sketching, or whatever, and then do a little bit of light journaling, especially if you have space around it. I think I'll leave it as is for now anyways. And hopefully do a little bit more practice, because I want to try and do at least once a week or twice a week if I can. Oh, and I wrote March because it says that underneath. It's okay. I can't believe we're actually into April. I feel like March kind of flew by a little bit. We're into April, but it also means we're into spring, so I'm all for it. Bring on the warmer temperatures. Let's see. All right, I think Brad is online. I see him here. On this stream starting soon, so we're gonna hop on over to Brad's stream, so I'll see you over there if you're gonna make it. If not and you're doing your own thing, that's cool. Thank you so much for joining my stream and for being here, for keeping me company. Hopefully it's something that you might do on your own time as well. Try it out. If you have brush markers or you have a blender pen and you want to give it a go, then do so, and then let me know what you think, if you enjoyed it and if you found it fun. But otherwise, I will be on tomorrow, same time, same place, 9 o'clock Pacific, and hopefully we'll do some ink painting. So I'll pick out some fountain pen inks and we can do a little bit of painting and just some abstract stuff. So thank you for being here. And I'll see you tomorrow, or I'll see you next week. I'll see you in a future stream or someone else's stream. All of Octopus, are you streaming tomorrow morning or Friday? Actually, I don't think you stream on Thursdays, right? Because we have the podcast live if you listen to that. But either way, I will see you in another stream. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you, friends. Yeah, go be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and also go play with your stationery. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.